This is a lecture at Art Students League Denver. It's September the 9th, and the lecture is about creating your visual voice, or the visual Dalai Mama, which was the substitute that iPad gave me instead of the word dilemma, which I think is hysterical, Dalai Mama. So I started thinking in my randomness this morning having coffee, I thought, what was Dolly's mama like? That's what I went. So, what was it like to grow up in a family where you had melted clocks? I mean, you clearly have gone off the deep end mentally here. But I thought it was hysterical to start thinking about what made Dolly create these images, What was Dolly's mother like? So I started thinking about the visual dilemma. How do you put things on a canvas? Good design is what makes a good visual statement, in my opinion. But depending on how you place the vocabulary, visual vocabulary, to produce a sentence, the shapes, the color of the line, ends up on the canvas being the weaving of what your imagery is. And so the visual vocabulary is a very limited vocabulary, but quite expansive if you use it well. So off on another tangent, I was thinking of the design in an iPad situation is that how brilliant that the way we do the other stuff, we have to go up to the menu, we bring it down, we do a cursor, the whole thing. No, they designed it so that you just hit the button. You want to go back, hit the button, you need to have codes, want to do the photographs, you don't have all the stuff. It's just so simple. And so good design, good vocabulary, good imagery is all made by the same criteria, which is the simplification of an image down to its lowest common denominator. So what I want to talk about is kind of this mental shift that you should take, the journey you should take as an artist to shift your vocabulary. So there's a visual vocabulary, which I call the design skills that you use. The ability to see shapes, the ability to decipher texture and pattern, the ability to express line, the ability to see value or tone, and the ability to evaluate color. So in color, there's sub-chapters of that. Color temperature, identifying the color family, and working with the intensity of the color. And we'll be talking about this all year long, so you don't have to scramble necessarily if you don't want to. What we're working with is this kind of vocabulary that would express what we want to have on the canvas and what we want to get. So one of the things that I'm passionate about, and I've passed out, is painting plein air. And so I have been working on this series, and I'll get back to it in a little bit. But plein air to me is kind of the ultimate frontier, because what it does is it allows you to put the senses into your work. So one of the things that I hate about photography is you take an image, you take 3-dimension, you flatten it to 2-dimension, and then you copy that to 2-dimension. So how the hell are you going to get depth in a painting if you're taking 2-dimension down again to 2-dimension? You're going to get 1-dimension. So you have to start with a good input. You have to start by standing here. So that's the reason why I drive myself crazy with plein air. And so at the end, what I'll weave into this conversation is how to get the journey along its way of doing plein air, of doing the studies, understanding what you're doing, to get a sense. So I always had a joke, and that is, don't do a visual painting by a drive-by shooting. And that means when you're going 80 miles an hour through Carrera, marble mines on a train and you take a picture, that's your experience you've had with it. That's how long you lived with that thing. That's how careful you were to look at details and live with it, and everything was the drive-by shooting. Click, click. You know, how can you do a painting like that? You've had no experience. So I think that the best work that I've seen done, that I personally feel like I've done, is by spending a lot of time studying something over and over and over again to get all the visual senses. I went to an art school and I was in geology, getting a minor in all kinds of random things, photography, anything I was interested in. And what they told you was to think out of the box. The first idea is not the best idea, it's just an idea. You keep working with ideas, you design, you synopsize those things, you pull them together. So we're going to be talking a lot about making a concept. I'm going to hand this out. This is one of the first paintings that I did that was a really long journey. It's done in Shawnee, New Mexico, to an area that I had kind of special privilege to paint in. And I did 14 studies to get that one painting. And I was just preoccupied with these trees. And the reason why I love these trees is they were at the area when I drove into what was called a parking lot. And it's a preserved area. This guy had 1,000 acres that had never been touched. And so we went there every summer for a decade. It was just unbelievable. And so what I tried to get in that painting was that feel of the fall, when you first had that, you know, those first couple nights where it's crisp and the leaves are starting to kind of get crunchy and it's early morning, and then you feel that first breeze and you know it's like this early pang of, oh God, summer's gone, kind of this loss, and the dead leaves, the last of them start to fall, and it's that whole feeling. And so in that painting, to me, it captures that. And so it was brought through because of a lot of studies. To me, the best paintings that I've ever seen anyone do in plein air are the ones that have that sensibility. So I found a Twatman, one of the few Twatmans that isn't a snow painting that's around, because everybody loves Twatman for snow paintings. But this is Gloucester, and when I was up 2 weeks in my van painting Gloucester Harbor, and this is motif number 1. If you've ever been to Gloucester, it's hysterical because the plein air painters have made these motif number 1, motif number 2. Motif number 1 is the red barn, still preserved. You know, everybody through time has painted it. Yet, if you look at Twatman's approach toward it, and I'm going to show it to you upside down, it's a graphic, very abstract. I'd even call it suprematist. If you look at Russian suprematism, very close to that in its organic structure. Yet, here's the back of what he's known for the most part, traditional Twatman. But he was a guy who knew what he wanted to get out of his work, and it is always infused. So anyway, one of the things that I've been working on in my own work, and I've brought as kind of a journey, was some of the studies that I took to compile a body of work. And so these bodies of work seemed random at best for most people, that when I was first producing them, and I just got preoccupied with grapes one time. And so this was the beginning of a grape series. This was the first one. It's 75 inches. It's not small grapes. 75 inches by 54. And if you know Richard Schmidt, when he did the book, it was done by Tim Teese's wife, and I helped him start that book. And Tim Teese, I commissioned him to make the frame for this thing. Tim died 2 years ago, so not only is it a big piece, but it's in a gorgeous frame. Frame's probably worth more than the painting is at this point. We just got it appraised. And the reason why I was interested in this is I'm adopted, and I don't know my lineage, so you can kind of see where I'd be going with this whole thing. So I got interested in what do grapes provide as an image. Well, they're about family, because they're the connectedness of a family. This first piece that I gave you that's passing around here was done in what's called a sample vine, which is kind of unusual because most vintners do not have a bunch of grapes that are different kind of grapes growing together because it's a problem for them. But this was in Russell, Kansas, and it's a sample vine. And so my son peeked his head through the sample vine when I was taking pictures. And I have this great picture of him poking through the sample vine. And so that was kind of sparked the whole idea of family. And then, not to get too heavy, but painting to me is the process of thinking through images and portraying things that happen in your life, I think. And so then I went through this divorce not long after that. And so I painted light to the power of 3, which was the whole idea of having a family. And then you don't, it's a weird thing, you know, when you're a single mom, and it's actually kind of fun in life, it's challenging in others. And then a lot of different kind of images, just thinking about stuff. These are all the prints I couldn't find in early morning, the originals or anything. They're all sold, but I have good pictures, but these are all G. Clay prints. But, you know, I started hanging out in vineyards, and so this process got to be fairly well known, and I started getting invitations like all over the world to go to vineyards, and so I kind of started doing it. I went to France, I went to the Western Slope, I went to Germany, I went Catalina Island, I went to Santa Margherita and Italy and Amalfi, and it just started getting to be this thing. That was super cool. But one of the things that I wanted to bring in was where things lead to. So it started with the grapes, then it kind of generated to a trip to France, and then I was standing out one morning early, and this is a plein air study, and it was the end of the season, and the grapes had turned bright, the leaves had turned bright red, and so it actually started me back into landscape. So I produced this French sketchbook, which was a lot of the little studies. There's tons and tons of them. And it was just the best trip of my life. And I went over there with a bunch of artists. We just had a blast. We painted just, it was crazy painting. Painting all the time. Actually 24/7. Some days we get to go to sleep. And so we got in the fields. This is the one. I'm not going to let you look at this one. I'm bringing another one in. But this was my dad's copy. So since he's deceased, some of those things mean something. But this was some of the studies that were done with just sitting in the fields. So it's just taking notes, like, what if I took grapes, and what if I abstracted them, and what if I just did simple shapes with a deep recorded palette and all kinds of things. And the only finished painting that's in this from a photograph is the end in the, I don't know what you call this district in Paris. I think it's the Writers. It's where Hawthorne hung out. I don't remember that. It's kind of about the main square about the opera. Anyway, so then that led to a trip to England. So I was like totally off the vine thing at that point. And I'll pass this around. I was in the boats. And traveling across England. And that was a journey to find a group of painters that were called the Newland School of Painters, all plein air painters. And stand-up farms and Walter Langley and all that. And that is the first chapter in the book that I produced 2 years ago, which was about the most arduous journey I've ever been on. But you can look at this. These are the artists that I went to try to find in Europe. And they're all, this piece was what started me painting and ambassador around in college. And that was, it's a study. Now, the interesting part about this group of painters is they thought that Homer actually found these first women on the beach, but Langley predated the Homer pieces. And so, because Homer was on a boat going over to see these people, and they were already painting it. So I had seen this in Penley Museum. I knew they owned it, which is in Pensacola Harbor. And I went to the museum and convinced them to let me see the piece. It wasn't out. And they actually let me go in the back and hold the piece. And so I'm like standing there, and you can't even imagine what that feels like. And I almost dropped it and broke it because I was such a wreck. And so the guard, when he realized, I'm standing there going, because I started crying. I was like, oh my God, how cool is this? And then the next moment was like, why would somebody give something they don't know from Adam? It's like $40,000 piece, and I would just stand there and hold it. But anyway, so, how cool was that? So that started the next thing, and it all goes from that. But I wanted to bring in some things that that mean something to me, that I've worked through with images. When my father died, my father and I were in business together. We created a line of clothes that was in New York and sold to Saks Fifth Avenue, and they were named MollyD, and it was just the greatest journey I ever had, growing up in New York and flying up in his private plane, and we worked. His place was in the penthouse on 58, West 58th, just not a bad address, and we lived in the penthouse in the summers. And so I had this amazing early design career with my father. So when he died, as you can imagine, he was my best friend. It was a pretty tough scenario. So that summer, I went into this journey, and I'll pass this along, but please be really careful. This was my gift to him. It shows you all the details, plackets, all kinds of things that were custom designed. We got most of this stuff done in Hong Kong and shipped it over. My father was an amazing designer, and I had a little model all this for me. But so when he died, I decided that he had had like this rich life of really good friends, and I've kept up with them in the past 13 years since he died. So just 2 weeks ago, I went back because they're all like 95. We're all getting older. It was my 60th birthday, so I decided to go. They wanted to fly me out. So we all had dinner together, and I took this picture, which means everything to them. And that was martini hour in the South. Call it happy hour. And let me tell you, Southern people take their happy hours quite seriously. So Dad mixed a mean martini. And one of the things that always sounded great was that time at night, and I put ice in here, but it melted, was when it's 5 o'clock and you're in New York, and the silver pitcher comes out and ice cubes are in there, and it makes that noise, and they're rattling around, and you get all excited because like my dad always told the same jokes for 50 years. We always died laughing at them. And I went with Dad's best friends last week, and we went out to dinner, and we were all sitting there, and we all started telling, motif number 1 joke, motif number 2. Just the great joke. So he was a character. Oh my God. So the richness of my experiences in my life, I think, have contributed to the paintings that I produce. That's a big passion for me, is kind of trying to get a sense of that. And I realized that in my research brain and the way I do things is not the way everybody's going to want to paint. But it has served me well because it's a process of thinking that is helpful. So these were done last week, and I can pass a pile of them around. They're not the best plein air studies, but I was having too many martinis, so I'm just saying, we were having a really good time. But there are studies of the widow walks and things like that on the Outer Bank in Beaufort. So all this takes you somewhere. You don't know where you're going if you paint for a living or paint as a hobby. You don't know where it's going to end up, and that's the fun part of the journey to me. I think a lot of students miss that fun part. They're so engrossed in, what do the brushworks look like, and the whole thing, and they miss the point that it's about the concept and it's about the ride. I've always joked about, I was a judge up in Boulder County for their pay now 2 weeks ago, and I told the woman, she said, "What's your criteria for looking for a good piece to give it an award?" And I said, "Just give me a good ride, tell me what you're doing, make me love it." And there were some great pieces at this show. So I'm going to segue to what I've been working on for the past 4 years now. That just got completed this week for Open Studios. It's been kind of an arduous journey, to say the least. The piece that I handed out to you, if you will go to the second page, which is this one right here, and look at this upper left-hand corner, and I can pass it around if you want, but it's this one. And I don't have the piece with me. I only have a few of these that haven't sold, so I'm not able to bring the exact ones in. But that piece was done on site, and just as cold as it looks, it was. It was 5 below. I was in Boulder Canyon. It was the first snow. An amazing sight. I'm going to pass this around because this is in color. And it was early morning, and those puffballs had all landed in the canyon, and nothing had thawed because just this huge amount of snow this trail now for 4 years, and I've done hundreds of studies and paintings, but I compiled them only to 17 that are going to be in the show. And so these paintings done from life have generated into this kind of cool idea to do a virtual art tour. So what I'm doing is people who download a GPS app on their cell phone, and they go down the tour and they can stand at the GPS location and see where I painted it. For 30 years I've worked on the trails in Boulder doing what I call a visual documentary, and that's kind of the historical tradition of Moran and Bierstadt. Not that I'm at that league of painting, but I at that level of study, meaning that I want to be as good as I can and I want to work on location. And so I've been going for 25 years to an area called the Tiller Farm Trails, which is White Rocks. And 25 years ago, I approached the owner of White Rocks and got a limited permit called an environmental access permit. And it took a year to get the permit. And then I went on site and painted on location for 2 years. The interesting part of that journey was that I realized as a painter, I had crossed over from the point of view of just being somebody that's in a gallery, and that wasn't my passion anymore. Now what has gotten me interested is documenting and preserving, in a very real sense, what we see and what we have right now. So you look at the whole journey of everything that seems to be very random, and my point is this. I'm going to get close to just now. Yes, that was my goal. Is that we don't know where all this stuff is leading us. You know, what I find is I get people in class and they're like, you know, I was in engineering, so how does that relate to art? Or I was in law, and how does that, you know, relate to art? And, you know, you like throw out all your skill groups. So if you're a lineal thinker and you've been able to memorize things, and that's been your logic lineal thinker, you'll be able to work through the lineal steps of art, which means color theory, the string theory of how color harmony works. It'll be logical to you. The randomness of the other things like abstraction will feel harder to you. Consequently, the people who have been in art or design their whole life will find color and shape easy as well, but color harder, because it'll feel very delicate and deliberate and meticulous to have to mix all the colors. So you'll be impatient about that. So what you bring to the table, you don't want to throw out. It becomes a part of the experience. And you want to put that down on canvas. And so what I'm trying to get to the very end here is a couple key points that kind of came in together for me as I was putting the last thoughts of this together at coffee a little while ago. And how are you resilient as an artist? So how do you rebuild your life? How do you sustain your events? How do you put them down on paper? How do you relive them? What goes on to the canvas? So that every time you get to a white canvas, you can create your own reality. I mean, how great is that, you know? So if the world's really weird, when it was, when Boulder was literally on fire. I mean, we had fires on the backside of Flagstaff. We had fires going up the canyon. I was evacuated. I had everything in a pickup truck. and you're like, okay, I still gotta work, right? So I'm going up the back side of Lions to paint, because the smoke wasn't there yet. It's about resilience. So if the painting works out or painting doesn't, it's about your experience that you brought to the canvas. And, you know, and that's the whole point of it. So I think we come to the canvas in a lot of different reasons, where we want to do it as a tale that we want to say, we want to invent something, we want to express something. But what I think is important is to, like we talked about last week, is to be in a study mode and to feed your curiosity, but not to judge your pieces too harshly, but just take them, cull them as the subtotal of your experiences. I mean, I do, as you can see, all kinds of things all the time, painting on location, making journals, got volumes in Boulder of all kinds of stuff that either worked out or it didn't. San Miguel Day commission that I did on the street was horrible, absolutely horrible. People walking by are like, this one guy stops and he goes, "What do you do for a living?" Gee, whoosh, ouch. And so anyway, you know, I kept painting. I didn't care. Well, of course I cared. I was devastated, but I still stood out there and painted in the street. It was horrible painting. Had a great time. So anyway, here's the end that I want you to consider about the work that you're bringing in and what we're going to be doing in the next hour and two is taking our images, trying to figure what we have, trying to make a concept, get an idea and live with it. You know, this preoccupation with grapevines and boats and clothing and everything has sustained me for a lifetime. Whether I've done good or bad, it doesn't matter, because it's the experience of all of it. So, here's the last joke at the end. So, getting back to the Dolly mom. So, you know, I was thinking about, what did Dolly, like, how bizarre is that? The Dolly's mom. Would she have like melted clocks all over the house or something that influences painting? I mean, because really, it's a crazy thought that somebody who would do this really out there work, why is he doing it? You know, is that as crazy as tracing after grapevines around the universe, or doing designs or paint when it's 5 degrees below? I don't think so. As long as what you're doing is deliberate and it has an idea behind it and you're exploring a concept. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do in this class is to never overjudge yourself, to give yourself a lot of leeway to explore, to grow, to design, to experience, to throw a lot of things away. The best painting is the ones you throw away, not the ones you keep, because they're just an example of what you learned. The ones that you throw away are why you're learning. So I kept all the bad ones, not to irritate myself, but so that when I do something right, I can say, what did I do right? How did I get that right? Oh, I did this wrong. So what did I do different? There was a choice that changed that direction. And it's a different mindset. It's not memorization, which is the way that most of things that we do in learning. It's experiential. And it's a developmental piece that you have to bring to the table as an artist.